Hello, my friends. Welcome back in. Two rather large pieces of news in the United States soccer footballing world to discuss with you today. The first is about the U.S. men's national team general manager position, and as part of that, the women's national team GM position that's being created, and some things that U.S. Soccer CEO Dan Flynn had to say about those. The second thing is pretty much the death of the NASL. So let's get going. All right, with the Dan Flynn comments about the general manager position, I'm just going to pull up a tweet here. It says, according to Flynn, the GM is I'm going to leave this up here, and I'll put a link in the description where you can find this. But essentially, Dan Flynn has come out and said the general manager positions for both the women's and the men's team are only going to be involved with hiring and firing staff for the senior teams. So Tab Ramos, who currently is like the technical director and the U20 men's national team, is going to handle the youth setup on the men's side. Now you would presume there's going to be somebody doing that on the women's side as well, because the GM is only going to handle, and again, he's specifically talking about the men's side, so that's what I'm going to be speaking about, not to slight the women, but we don't have a manager right now, so that's kind of the bigger deal. So the GM on the U.S. men's national team side is only going to hire and fire like the coach, the head coach of the senior team, and that staff for the senior team. They're going to have nothing to do with the youth setup. That's a bit curious to me. I'd like your thoughts on that, because that doesn't sound like a general manager to me. That sounds like another layer of somebody to blame, to when if there is some sort of failure in the future, you could say like, well, we fired the GM. Because you have to connect the youth team to the senior team. That's the general idea. That's what the really good countries of the world do, right? Like their technical program, from the moment you get into the program as a youth player to the senior team, is aligned. Now, theoretically, could you align those things with Tab Ramos and the new GM and the new head coach and staff on the senior team? Yes, but wouldn't it be easier if you had one overarching person who said, this is how we're going to do things, everybody is in line, I'm in charge, and if you don't like it, you can leave. It's kind of a control thing versus you're coming to maybe more of a consensus with having multiple people in there. But then you go, well, then what's the point of having a GM if all they're going to do is hire the new men's national team manager and the technical staff? What else are they going to do? Like, you hired them, then what? Like, I'm sure there's some other responsibility. It doesn't make much sense to me. It seems to me like they've already kind of neutered that role, but also protected themselves a little bit to say like, well, we had a general manager, versus getting everybody in line on one program and having one person. Like, it makes a lot of sense to have one person in charge of each side, of the men's side and the women's side, from your most senior players down to your U14s or whatever, right? That's my opinion on it. I'd like your thoughts on that. The second thing, quite unfortunate, is the NASL isn't officially dead, and that's the North American Soccer League if you're not familiar, but they've suspended the season for 2018 because they don't have enough teams. And they have a lot of lawsuits going on against USSF, saying that essentially they've caused the death of this by not treating them fairly in comparison to the USL. So a piece of me is sad, because that means there are players, staff, coaching staffs, people who help run those teams, owners that are currently. The owners still have the teams. They have the names and all that kind of stuff. But really, they don't have any teams. Those fans in those local markets now don't have a local team to cheer for. Those players are going to scramble to try and find a spot to land. That's bad for the game in the United States. But there's also a piece of me that says, like, this was kind of inevitable. NASL started hemorrhaging teams. Now, you can argue, and that's, this is the 30,000 foot view. That's one of the things they're arguing in court, is like, their loss of teams to USL or folding was contributed by USSF not treating them fairly. So you can make that argument, but you still were hemorrhaging teams, and it's kind of hard to have an entire league over like the entire United States with 12 teams. Up, make that 10 teams. Up, make that 8 teams. right? And you're trying to line up investors. If I'm an investor going to say, you want me to invest in this ship that's got a giant hole in it and is seemingly sinking, and how much money do I have to spend on this? What's the potential return? That's not very good. It kind of seemed like the writing was on the wall ever since USL and NASL started getting in this argument about D2 status. Like, somebody has to get D2 status. I'm going to make the argument that I think this is completely avoidable if you have pro rel in the United States. Now, I could be wrong. I've not read in depth on all the things from the NASL leadership side, but say, hey guys, we're going to give you D3 status, but we're implementing pro rel between D2 and D3. So your top 2 teams, let's say it's in 5 years. In 5 years, can get promoted to USL, and USL comes down, and like that way people have got time to think through those things and work through it. Then if you're a potential investor or an owner or, management of a team or whatever, a locality that's looking to potentially have a team brought in, and maybe you're going to invest in the field if you're the municipality, whatever. Well, now maybe that's an attractive option, because if you're well run, you have the opportunity to get promoted. Where I think NASL, again, this is really high level, 50,000 foot view. I think one of the reasons they failed is they were so determined to get the D2 status with a league that was smaller and hemorrhaging teams and had been shaky for a couple of years. It's hard to be like, hey, here's your D2 status. So if there was an option for them to have accepted D3 with the potential for their teams to earn D2, now you've got a business model. Now, NASL leadership may not like that because now they're officially D3, but, well, then you still have your league. Right now, you don't have a league. And I'd like to know your thoughts. Do you think NASL somehow makes a comeback in 2019? Can they return? I don't think it's personally likely. Like, they'd already lost a bunch of teams, and you just shut down the 2018 season before it started. It's going to be really hard to start that thing back up again to get enough teams to have an official league the next year after you shut down. They've come back from the dead before, so we'll see, but that's kind of my thoughts. So I love your thoughts on both of those things. What do you think about the comments here about the U.S. men's national team general manager position? And what do you think about NASL shutting down for the 2018 season? We are going to keep moving on with our pro rel discussion here on the channel. That'll be unless something else crazy. I keep having like crazy U.S. soccer news come out, like, oh, well, they said the GM's apparently not going to do much, and NASL is almost folding. So I've had some news that if I'm doing a video every Thursday, I've kind of had to kind of jump on that, and I apologize. This is a day late. It's coming out on a Friday, but we are going to keep our conversation moving forward about pro rel in the United States and like some of the challenges, some of the potential benefits, how I think it could work. That'll be my planned next episode next Thursday, again, unless something else crazy happens in our world. So you've got the She Believes Cup going on right now, so maybe you watch that if you're a U.S. soccer fan. And in the meantime, have a great day. We'll see you next time.